Born into a life of wealth and luxury, Xanitos was fortunate enough to be the son of a planetary governor of the mining world Telos 4. However, his comfortable life would be turned upside down upon the Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn's visitation of the world, as he noticed a strong connection to the Force and wished to take him back to Coruscant for training. His father, secretly wanting the political advantage of a Jedi son, urged Xanitos to leave with the Jedi, despite the boy's reluctance. Xanitos would finally agree and would go on to become an extraordinary duelist and impressive tactician at a shockingly young age, marking himself somewhat of a prodigy within his Padawan class. However, years later, the council members became reluctant to allow Xanitos into knighthood, sensing much ambition and ferocity within the young man. As such, they sent him to quell the civil war ravaging his homeworld with Qui-Gon Jinn as the trials into knighthood. It was eventually discovered that Xanatos' own father was responsible, as his greed and lust for power corrupted him. As Xanatos' father pleaded with his son to return to his side, the governor attacked Qui-Gon Jinn, and the Jedi was forced to kill him. Xanatos lashed out in betrayal and would haunt Qui-Gon Jinn for years as a Dark Jedi. It wasn't until after many confrontations and even the attempted assassination of Master Yoda that Xanatos was finally cornered years later. Rather than be captured, Xanatos threw himself into a deadly acid pit to spite his former master in a gruesome act of suicide. Xanatos' time was spent before he had reached his full potential, but even despite this fact, he posed a constant danger to the most prominent leaders within the Jedi Order and the galaxy as a whole. Jerick was a well-respected archaeologist and a former Padawan of the chief librarian Jukos Sanu. Jerick was enamored with hidden knowledge, and his thirst for ancient wisdom led him far away from the happenings of Order 66, ultimately saving his life. However, in secrecy during the times of the Jedi Order, Jerick had craved for forbidden Sith teachings, having believed there was nothing he could further learn from the Jedi that would satiate his desire for knowledge. Eventually, Jerick was found by inquisitorial forces and given an ultimatum: join the Inquisition and serve Sidious, or die. Jerick joined the Dark Forces almost avidly, and spent years hunting down Jedi survivors of the Inquisition, turning some to his side and killing countless more. It wasn't until the death of Sidious and Vader that Jerick would become a master of his own fate once again. He went on to form a group of Dark Jedi loyal to his will, and sought to finally seek out the immense power he craved through the hidden valley of the Jedi. Having killed thousands, including the Jedi Master Qui-Gon and Kyle Katarn's father, Jerick finally bathed in the power emanating from the hidden valley of the Jedi, ascending him into incredible heights of strength within the Force. However, he was slain by the unlikely hero Kyle Katarn in single combat, forever ending the threat he posed to the galaxy. Jedi, Inquisitor, and then Dark Jedi, Jerick had lived many lives, but abysmal darkness had always laid within him, waiting for the right opportunity to seize control. These characters will be represented as they were before their death. However, Jerick will not be benefiting from the power he achieved in the Valley of the Jedi. Xanitos was 25 years old at the time of his death, and solidly within his physical prime. His strength was incredibly imposing for someone of his seemingly standard build. His former master Qui-Gon Jinn had made note of the incredible force in his fighting style when he was locked in combat with him, and Qui-Gon's own strength is very noteworthy. He was able to keep up this show of strength for almost indefinitely long periods of time, and has faced both Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan at the same time by himself, with no sign of tiring. Xanatos was also extremely tough when he fell to the dark side, and on one occasion had received a glancing strike to his shoulder from Qui-Gon, but immediately went on to dual wield rather than fall victim to his injuries. His speed was also noteworthy, and was capable of the acrobatics that allowed him great maneuverability in a fight. Going on to stalemate his former master in several confrontations, Xanatos has proven he is an extremely powerful and persevering combatant, one that fuels himself with his inner rage and as such bolsters his physical capability. He should not be underestimated. Jerick belonged to the Malico race and therefore lacked eyes. However, Malico can see through the Force, ultimately granting them a better sense of their surroundings than a typical humanoid. It is said they can actually see the Force radiating off of others, and as such will be less inclined to underestimate their opponents. However, Jerick appeared to be in his late 50s to mid-60s, so therefore suffers some penalty to his physical capability. I believe this notion is further proven true by examination of his reliance on Force abilities and his chosen fighting style. but we'll get to that later. While Jerick isn't flimsy by any means, he isn't the hate-fueled machine Xanatos has proven himself of being. Jerick may hold some advantages in the realm of sense and awareness, but these aren't nearly significant enough to overcome the awarded strength, durability, and speed Xanatos prides himself on. Xanatos is given the edge in physical prowess. Xanitos was noted as being the most skilled duelist within his Padawan class, surpassing them all by a significant margin. His most evident lightsaber form was Form 4, Ataru. Ataru form is an aggressive style that prides itself on maneuverability through the use of acrobatics. It can also make use of a fast-paced offensive, which attacks several points on an opponent in quick succession. Xanitos made use of this form's advantages extensively by pressuring his opponent with his speed and making use of force jumps for a variety of purposes in combat. Xanatos has also shown some proficiency in Jerec, as he utilized dual wielding an encounter with his form master. Qui-Gon Jinn also made note of the immense power of Xanatos' strikes, and the Dark Rivals made use of a reverse grip on his lightsaber on occasion, which indicates a use of Form 5, both the Gemso and Shi'an variations. Additionally, Xanatos went out of his way to ensure his footwork had been improved upon after its sloppiness was exploited by Qui-Gon Jinn in their first encounter. This encounter forced Xanatos to vigorously improve his fighting style from the ground up. As such, it was later noted that Xanatos then moved with a grace and economy of motion in his fighting style. Due to his immense desire for revenge against Qui-Gon Jinn, Xanatos learned from his mistakes in every single encounter he had with his form master, obsessively doing whatever he could to negate his style's most inherent weaknesses. As such, Xanatos was a worthy duelist based on his martial skill alone, but was only further made dangerous by his tactical knowledge and use of psychological warfare. Even as a Padawan, Xanatos took great interest in infrastructure, but was ultimately the sort of knowledge that allowed him to infiltrate the Jedi Temple undetected when he fell to the dark side. He was crafty while in combat, often making use of feigned attacks and pitting maneuvers to his opponent's weapon. Much like Qui-Gon, he made use of physical strikes when it benefited him. He frequently relied on playing to his enemy's assumptions, allowing his opponent to gain a false sense of security in their strategy, and then pull it out from underneath them by use of the unorthodox and unexpected. He further offed his opponent by making use of Duel, essentially psychological warfare. When Xanatos knew he was at a disadvantage, he would make use of the environment in whatever way possible he could to even the odds, and if all else failed, he would flee to engage at a more favorable time. Quite simply, Xanatos knows how to give himself the best possible chance, whatever sort of circumstance he finds himself in, and the only time he had failed to do so in his final confrontation. And even then, Xanatos had realized his failure and committed suicide rather than allow himself to be captured. Despite his age, Xanatos' use of tactical thinking surpasses many of those who double his lifetime, and he is something of a prodigy when it comes to lightsaber combat. Jerick's focus as a Jedi was on one thing and one thing alone: the seizure and consumption of forbidden knowledge. He was an archaeologist and a scholar, and as such spent countless hours refining his wealth of knowledge, not his skill with the lightsaber. Jerick also shown a significant reliance on the use of force abilities, and it is for these reasons that I believe Jerick almost certainly relied on the tenets of Form 6 lightsaber combat, also known as 9-man. 9-man is essentially a streamlined style and makes use of all aspects from all other lightsaber forms, allowing the practitioner to be well-rounded with relatively little need for practice or study. As such, they focus their attention on other skills, such as diplomacy, or in Jerick's case, the search of knowledge. It also incorporates implementation of force abilities into one's fighting style, again keeping true to its balanced form. Due to this well-rounded and simple nature of 9-man, Form 6 practitioners were fairly standard in style. They possess no evident strengths nor weaknesses, unless they take the fighting style to the utmost extreme, like Exar Kun or Darth Krayt. Unsurprisingly, Jerick did not take 9-man to these great lengths. However, Jerick became an Inquisitor after the happenings of Order 66, and inevitably was forced to take on a new role as a Jedi Hunter in addition to his place as a scholar. Consequently, Jerick was pitted against dangerous Jedi survivors on countless occasions, and needed to defend himself effectively without putting all of his faith in force abilities. An examination of Jerick's fighting form, he used a one-handed grip upon his lightsaber and moved with a reservation of sorts, gracefully applying what was only necessary to get the job done and not any more. It is for this reason I believe he had taken up some use of Form 2 Makashi in his time as Inquisitor, and as such made use of it in addition to 9-man while locked in lightsaber combat thereafter. Makashi is clearly tailored for lightsaber engagements, and is characterized by its refined movements and economy of motion. It makes it a very suitable lightsaber form for the sort of prey Jerick was tasked with hunting. Additionally, Jerick was fiercely intelligent, and has shown great skill in both the leading of the Dark Jedi followers he had at his side and his experience as an Inquisitor. Jerick also sought to overthrow his opponent's morale through the use of Dune Maw, and planting seeds of doubt or fear within his enemies. Ultimately, however, Jerick's main focus was most certainly not in lightsaber combat. He believed swordplay would be all but useless to him once he achieved the power he had lusted for, and as such sought to refine his use of the Force instead. Regardless, he has been accredited to the elimination and capture of countless of Jedi, and therefore has proven a very viable lightsaber combatant. Both of these combatants have shown strategic knowledge and use of psychological warfare against their opponent in a variety of instances. Xanitos is a much more aggressive duelist, relying on his strength and speed to overwhelm his opponent and cut them down. Jerick is a much more reserved swordsman, only initiating what is needed to get the job done and defend himself appropriately. However, as I said before, Jerick's focus is not lightsaber combat. It has only adopted the use of Form 2 Makashi as a necessity, in order to better serve as an Inquisitor. While I believe he is definitely viable, I do not believe his skill with the lightsaber is on par with Xanatos's. He is viable enough to pose a threat, but ultimately he will have to rely on other factors in order to best his opponent. Xanatos is awarded the edge in martial ability. Both Xanatos and Jerick made use of a single standard lightsaber with a red synthetic crystal. Xanatos molded his red crystal himself, but as far as I know, it is standard in make. No advantage will be given weaponry. Xanatos is remarkably strong within the dark side. He was described as a serious threat to the Jedi Order and the galaxy as a whole, and those who felt his presence remarked that he was an embodiment of evil. He was so powerful within the dark side that Yoda was uneasy about him, even in his time as a Jedi. Xanatos could make use of telekinetics for both combative and utility purposes, as he has been seen manipulating his environment to benefit him with this ability, as well as throwing surrounding objects at his opponents. Remarkably, Xanatos was capable of achieving focus and strength through the Force that was deemed equal to his foreign masters. This granted Xanatos extreme focus in combat, allowed him to channel his rage in a way that awarded greater strength, but did not submit him to the usual tunnel vision inexperienced Darksiders succumb to. Qui-Gon Jinn is famed for his immensely strong connection and engrossment to the Force, so for Xanatos to be put on a scale must mean his potential was absolutely astounding. However, Xanatos' greatest achievement as far as his Force capabilities is his Force Cloak, which allowed him to mask his presence and intentions from other Force sensitives. He was shown such a mastery of this ability that he was able to infiltrate the Jedi Temple in Coruscant and remain concealed from everyone's sense, including Grandmaster Yoda. Xanatos' saturation of the dark side was staggering, and if his life wasn't cut short before his time, I believe he could have been able to rival many of the most powerful Jedi within his era. Jerick's obsession was achieving power through the Force, and ultimately, this is where all of his focus was placed. The dark side seeped from within him and emitted a disturbing presence to other Force users that was immensely unsettling. His telepathy was powerful enough to break the mental Force barriers of Qui-Gon and gain the information he was looking for. It has been stated that many of the Dark Jedi accompanying him are subjugated to his will by use of the Force alone. He was capable of powerful Force lightning and was able to defend himself from such attacks through the use of Tuna Menace, energy dissipation, or an enhanced Force barrier. Jerick bolstered himself through the use of Consume Essence and Force Focus, who would feed off his opponent's dark energy and negative emotions, and further anger them with taunts and psychological warfare, ultimately granting himself greater power and unbalancing his foe.
No compassion for him! I want him dead!
Yes! Hate me!
He feeds off the dark side now. You only make him stronger.
Even these abilities were nothing to the strangely esoteric energy attacks he frequently made use of. Using a rare ability called Force Destruction, Jerick was able to fire waves of dark side energy that could be used to completely incapacitate his opponent, as seen in his encounter with Jedi Master Qui-Gon. Additionally, it could be unleashed in such a way that threatens to totally vaporize his enemies. It has once blown apart a docking bridge, a structure strong enough to hold a large ship into place. Lastly, Jerick has been described by Qui-Gon as a dark cloud that overshadows one's connection to the Force. While I don't believe this is akin to the incredible ability known as Force Sever, I believe this indicates that Jerick was able to weaken an opponent's Force abilities by drowning them in his surrounding dark side energy. In conclusion, Jerick is an extremely powerful Force user. Not only does he have raw power on his side, but he possesses some remarkably rare Force powers, many of which only few even know exist. An examination of his Force abilities, it really comes to no surprise how freakishly obsessed he was with forbidden knowledge, and ultimately he has been rewarded with powers that make him a serious threat to almost anyone. Both of these combatants are completely engrossed in the dark side, an embodiment of hate and anger. However, I think it will come to no surprise who will be given the advantage here. While Xanitos has shown mastery of the use of Force Cloak, his combative Force powers are very standard. He isn't capable of the refined dark side abilities such as Force Lightning, and ultimately will not be able to muster enough to overwhelm his opponent in this category. Even though I believe he'll be making use of the Force on his surroundings to give himself an environmental advantage, it's just simply not anywhere near enough to overcome the near mastery of the dark side Jerick can make use of. Where Xanitos is inexperienced when it comes to Force powers, Jerick has been refining and learning all that he possibly could even before his fall to the dark side, and his decades worth of knowledge have granted him powers most others could only dream of attaining. Not only is Jerick more powerful, he's also more versatile, balancing both offensive and defensive Force abilities, and even applying his Force destruction alone for a variety of different purposes. Jerick is awarded the advantage in Force skill. This hypothetical battle will be taking place upon the mining world of Telos 4, within a large smelting room used to break down ores into a liquid state. Unfamiliar with his opponent, Xanitos will knock out the room's lighting with a Force push, bathing the area in impenetrable darkness, save for the liquid metal burning in a nearby vat. Xanitos will lurk amongst Jerick, seeking to press a saber upon his enemy's back, ignite it through his chest. Jerick would just likely taunt his younger counterpart, and would sense him scuttling about within the shadows, as he sees his world through the use of the Force, and light is irrelevant to him. Xanitos would muster a Force cloak and charge at his opponent, but Jerick would anticipate this attack and deflect expertly. Now they would engage in straightforward lightsaber combat, Xanitos employing his Ataru hybridization, and Jerick his defensive use of Makashi and Iman. At this point, the strength Xanitos wields will put Jerick in a very precarious position. His guard would just barely hold back his opponent's attack. Eventually, Xanitos will force Jerick's blade into a pinning maneuver against the floor, and implement a solid punch to Jerick's jaw. Stunned from the physical strike, Jerick would begin to fire his Force Lightning in desperation, flicking its electric tendrils across Xanitos' whereabouts. With no real way to defend himself from such an attack, Xanitos is forced to make use of evasive maneuvers, jumping across the mining equipment and climbing on top of large containers. With a reasonable distance between them, Jerick is now in his realm of comfort. He continues to lead Xanitos towards the smelting chambers, using his Force Lightning to pull him to a desired placement. Xanitos makes use of a Force Leap to strike Jerick down in a move of desperation, but the veteran then musters forth a blast of Force Destruction, squarely hitting Xanitos and consequently paralyzing him. Jerick then throws a saber into Xanitos' chest. As the saber is returned to its master's hand, the Dark Apprentice falls into the vat of molten metal, melting him instantly. As such, Jerick is declared the victor. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I believe this is the first time Jerick has ever been used in a Versus Series matchup, so I hope you all found his debut respectful enough to the character. On an ending note, I would like to say that I have just broke the milestone of 100 subscribers, and I want to thank each and every one of you guys who has taken the time to watch my videos and comment and subscribe and just be as supportive you guys have. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you find my future videos even more enjoyable. Well, that's enough for me for now. Thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate it. I can't even tell you how much I do. And like always, may the Force be with you.